One of the most common mistakes that we see in women's health is this assumption that hormones are the whole problem and the whole answer as well. So today we're
Yes.
going to get into this a little bit more, right, Dr. V? We're going to talk about
Yes.
my favorite headache because it helps us to learn so much about guiding people towards true health and healing. All of the headaches do, really. But this one is one I think where we're going to actually start seeing more and more and more. Because I want to share with everybody this article that I just ran across in this magazine that is distributed throughout these gyms throughout the United States called Lifetime Magazine. And they're celebrating the fact that the FDA is removing the black box warning from the hormone replacement therapy products. Right. So to be
Ouch.
clear, Dr. Vrzal and I want all the women in the world to feel their best and have every option available to them and not be restricted. Right. But
Right.
our concern here is that, as they're saying, that for most women, health officials, not Dr. V and I, we're not included in the health officials, apparently, the benefits of HRT outweigh the risks. And I think our whole point that we're going to talk about today is giving us some signs and symptoms of what we can do so that this isn't something that anybody even has to do. The options that don't have a black box warning and never had a black box warning and never will should be the things that should be this article should be written about. Obviously, we want women to have every option available to them, but we want the options that never had a black box warning and are not dangerous. So we're going to talk a little bit about these headaches today. Interesting that this article does mention that there are essentially over 400 purposes for estrogen in our body. But we're going to talk about a few of the things that we do to help women who never have to go on HRT feel their best and young and healthy and all those things for a very long time. Welcome to Truth to Trend.
Yes, Truth to Trend, the holistic breakdown.
There it is.
Yeah, and you said our body, because we also want to remind the male audience that males have estrogen as well. I mean, certainly the ratios are very different between males and females, but when males make bonehead choices, testosterone converts to estrogen, right? And vice versa. When women make those choices, then they do.
Right.
So I was just curious, was this your favorite subject because you used to hear, "Not tonight, honey, I have a headache"? Is that what this is? This is that headache. If it's a bitemporal, then you can give them a little, okay, you're not pulling my leg. Right?
Right. But I guess the point is here's what could be happening, right? Because now there's going to be this whole influx of women who are going, oh, wow, it is safe for me to take hormones, completely safe. They're going to start taking them. And guess what's going to happen? They're going to start getting headaches, aren't they? Right. Because what is the main reason that people are getting those bitemporal headaches in your experience?
Yes. Right. So the bitemporal and perfect, segue into all of this was, bitemporal headaches is poor estrogen metabolism ultimately. And so if they're not metabolizing estrogen properly, they get that bitemporal headache. Woo, that's an alarm. That's a fun, lights and sirens alarm that you're not metabolizing that estrogen. Well, you're in that segment of the population that has higher risk of consequences from using synthetic hormones, even if they call them bioidentical or they change the term every couple of years so that people are less concerned about them. But whatever they call them, it's still adding extra load to an already challenged liver. Ultimately, is where we're going, and then you put on top of that, too much sugar, too much carbohydrate, which compromises and skews hormones, adverse compromised gut biome. We have trouble. So, I mean, it's all the things, the big buzz terms that, are all over social media, well, all over the research these days, on estrogen metabolism, but this just puts a further strain on it ultimately. So, you talked about non-black box warning options. Really, the healthy way to handle this, right, is to have the adrenals function well, the ovaries function well, have the liver detoxing as it should. Then menopause, perimenopause is like, oh, wait a minute, it's been a year since I menstruated. Not all this, sweat and changing their pajamas 5 times at night and all the other chaos that goes along with it. That's ultimately sugar handling for the most part. But again, taking synthetics to solve that is way more risky, and has challenges as opposed to healing the adrenals, healing the liver and the pancreas and so on.
Right. Yeah. So I love that they're still admitting that there are risks. Clearly there are risks, right? That we've known this, that the vast majority of breast cancers are estrogen receptor positive. And if you have problems with if your body's not supported in its ability to break down estrogen, and then you're dumping more estrogen in, or progesterone that's going to turn into estrogen, or testosterone that's going to turn into estrogen, we really need to focus on helping support the body's ability to break down the estrogen, clear it out of the body for sure. Yeah,
for sure.
That's the concern that we have. And that's why we want to bring this to everybody's attention, because it is going to become more and more happening. And there are many things that can be introduced, like you said, that don't have a black box warning, that can help facilitate this. And I think we both got many, many stories of people coming in have had all kinds of headaches and just very simple things that they just never were made aware of, right? That were never introduced to. In fact, I think one of the biggest things that I think everybody out there listening should know about is the power of the protomorphogens for the endocrine system. I think that alone can be massive shift for so many women out there who are chasing hormone replacement therapy. In the last several months, I can't tell you how many women, just as the simple, easy button, the one thing I said to try is that general female endocrine packet from Standard Process, because it supports the hypothalamus, the pituitary, thyroid, the adrenals, and the ovaries. And so many women, that's all I've had them do, and their hot flash is gone, right? They're all of these symptoms that they were feeling. And I tell them that's the baseline. There's so much more we can do. You know, if you want it simple and easy with side benefits as opposed to risks, that's a great starting point.
Well, and the marketing is so strong behind it. You know, gals think I'm 40, I'm 50, I need HRT. That's my body's not producing it. That is the accepted mentality these days. And why don't people ask, well, why isn't your body producing? God didn't design you to need synthetic hormones.
Exactly. Well, and I think there's just like so many health conditions that you and I observed over the years are the result of long-term depletion of specific nutrients that the body needs to do certain things. And I think that's a huge case with this. I think the sex hormone precursors are hugely missing from people's diets. They're not getting germ oil. They're not getting black currant seed oil. They're not getting, the basic things that help produce these hormones. In fact, I'm all over the place here, but I'm going to let you get to your slides.
You're excited. I like it.
I did. Well, I had a lady who tests for black currant seed oil. I don't know if I've told you my stories about black currant seed oil, but it is one of the big game changers for so many women. I was speaking in North Carolina, and a doctor approached me because I mentioned the black currant seed oil that this one doctor I worked with would put people on 20 a day for like 3 or 4 months. But he did that because she had such a profound change in these women, especially if they had a prolapsed uterus. So this woman calls me up and she said, Dustin, after hearing you say that, I can't do a squat without it popping out, right? And she's really worried about this. And so she goes, I started doing 24 black currant seed oil a day, and after 3 days, I can squat without my uterus popping out of my body in 3 days.
Wow.
Right. So, I mean, what a cool thing. What an amazing story.
Serious. Yeah. I had not heard that before. That's a great story. And we got to throw it out. The big pushback's going to be seed oils, right? It's an omega-6, and we're a lot of what we talk about is well, and you especially, is the omega-3, omega-6 ratios.
Right.
And so, so how do we calibrate for that when we have a story, about 24 seed oils a day?
Well, I mean, obviously in the seed oil, there's a lot of the processing and the way that seed oils are prepared and all the other bad seed oils as well, right? We want the value and the quality of the type of seed oil that people are using. That's not to say that we shouldn't be putting emphasis on the omega-3 portion of that. Usually that's the issue, is that they don't have enough omega-3s to bring balance. And many times I've seen people where they have a massive imbalance ratio, really high omega-6 to omega-3. And the only change that we've brought to them is adding in more fish oil, more omega-3s, and it's corrected it. So in experience, from looking at thousands of labs at this point, it's usually that they're just not getting enough of the omega-3s to really do that. Now, bad seed oils, yes, cut them out, get rid of them.
Yes.
Let's not talk about that. But so that's an interesting one. And I had another lady that I wanted to introduce this to, but she was on Eliquis, and she said, my doctor said I can't do black currant seed oil. And I looked it up, and I was like, well, here's why. Because Eliquis will naturally thin your blood without, that's why she can't take the drug, because something natural will actually help her blood be appropriately thin. So they say, no, you're taking the drug. You can't do that. So this was crazy to me that's where people get stuck. They get stuck in not eating a whole food because of a drug that has to do one specific function in their body.
Right. Taking this drug, so don't eat vegetables, right?
Yeah.
Don't eat grapefruit. Yeah.
I just want to finish one thought though before you go on there. I mean,
Please.
we are not sponsored by any of these companies that we talk about, but we talk about them because we want people to know about the options that we feel work, right? And if we do get sponsored, we will let you know when we're being sponsored by somebody that we have vetted. Right. But this is what I was just talking about, is this general female endocrine packet. And it only has one black currant seed oil in there, just so you know. But it has 2 fish oil in it as well, right? So we're bringing
the ratios right.
That's right. And then you get those general. So I'm becoming more and more of the opinion, as people, you're saying women are getting older and they need to start taking hormones. I think in my clinic, once they're 30, I start looking at whether or not this is an appropriate something for them to take, even just one or 2 days a week, just to get something in there to keep them from going too far backwards on that.
Right.
Because I don't want them to wait until they have to take 20 a day, right, to help reverse things. I'd rather they start getting in one, a few days a week now to help them
right.
from getting into
that. That's interesting. I mean, my typical approach is vasculine or cataplex B to bring tone to the pelvic floor. So very different mechanism. So I look forward to kind of dabbling with that and seeing, which one works better for some of these people, because that's a mess. People that have had that the mesh, the surgeries, and they put that synthetic mesh in there, intending for the body to grow scar, basically grow it into all the muscles. And then they realize they have problems with that mesh for hernias as well. Same thing, same mechanism. And then they decide we need to get this out, and oh, what a gnarly surgery that is. cutting that out of the muscle and everything that's a big recovery.
Oh man, absolutely. Absolutely. And to me, I think it is a lot about just a lack of, now I'm getting too specific here because there's other things we're going to talk about, the estrogen metabolism. But I do think it has a lot to do with vitamin E deficiency in women, the whole vitamin E, because so many supplements out there are putting just D-alpha tocopherol in there and creating this imbalance. And this is why I'm seeing so many amazing turnarounds with things like wheat germ oil and black currant seed oil, even chlorophyll.
Right. Yeah. So side effect of taking too much or taking D-alpha tocopherol by itself for too long is low back pain, bilateral iliac crest kind of area, low back pain. And that can be resolved by taking a whole food cataplex E option or wheat germ oil. Typically will reverse or eliminate that back pain. Similar story. I had somebody, flew in from Oregon, with a bodybuilder with low back pain and neck pain and so on. I'm like, oh, you need wheat germ oil. Wheat germ, wheat, what? And, within hours, all those aches and pains were gone. And I, I was a hero. And he started as kind of a skeptic, and it took one simple supplement like that to resolve all his aches and pains that he thought was just from working out too much.
Just wheat germ oil. Yeah. I mean, because I want to talk about foods, and I talk about the National Institutes of Health dietary supplements here. But if you go down to the foods, look at that. You said wheat germ oil. It is by far the highest source of vitamin E. I mean, it's almost 3 times higher than the second highest, which is sunflower seeds. But look at this. We're talking about seed oils again, right? Sunflower seeds, almonds, sunflower oil, safflower oil. This is what they've listed as the vitamin E sources from foods. And I want people to get as much as possible, but we have to get them.
Yeah, and so E is a precursor, it's very relevant in all the hormones, estrogen metabolism, right? Oxidation, keeping the blood thin. There's all kinds of great value, great benefit when it's done right.
Exactly. So let's share them some of your knowledge on this estrogen dominance or breakdown situation, because we are so getting exposed to excess estrogen in a lot of things, right? You can get exposed to estrogen through just eating commercially raised meats. They're putting estrogen into those animals, right? So we need all
Right, right.
health.
They want to, sorry, ladies, but they want to fatten up the animals,
Right.
right? So there's a symptom. I mean, that's a symptom of too much estrogen is of chronic too much estrogen is the junk in the trunk,
Hmm.
the big booty syndrome, if you will. And so that's another sign. So we say that from the optimistic side that can change when we make proper changes, when we get the phytoestrogen sources out of the diet, we help the liver break down that estrogen properly, then even something that gals think that that's their genes, that's the way they were born, or that it was
Right.
meant to be, so to speak, then that stuff can go away. So bitemporal headaches, you like the way I put the little ovary in the temple there
Oh,
for the
good.
bitemporal headache picture. Look at
You're
that.
you're sharing now, right? Okay, good.
Uh,
Okay.
you can see my slides properly,
I
right?
can. Yes, I can. Hmm.
Okay. All right. Here we go. So some of the, chiropractors or, those of you that are getting adjusted on a regular basis, if your chiropractor is adjusting C3 and L3 on a regular basis or simply out that, period, then that's a hormone problem. So C3 and L3 are kind of the circuit breakers for that. The muscle that gets weak when estrogen metabolism isn't proper is the glute medius muscle, which is just below belt line, if you will. That's the one that if your chiropractor looking at that, they call that the Trendelenburg test, where, if you lift one leg, then they'll kind of flop to the side. When that muscle's chronically weak, we end up with osteoporosis in one hip. So if some ladies, if you've been told that you have bone loss and the main bone loss is in one hip over the other, how can that be, right? If it's a metabolic issue, all the bones would be equal. So we need to look at why one area is more than the other. And estrogen metabolism is a perfect example of that because that will show up in the femoral neck of the femur. And that's a risk because then they fall on that and end up with a broken hip and all the consequences and constellation that goes along with that. So the glute medius muscle is going to get weak. Referred pain, I think I have some slides on that too, is on the elbow. Tennis elbow is also a hormone problem at
Interesting.
its core.
Okay.
Right. So, which correlates with, because there's a tonification point right on the radial head, right on the outside of the elbow. And so that's some of the wrist extensors, and the glute medius, again, are the muscles that are going to get weak when the testes for men or the ovaries for women. Testes are going to be compromised if they've done testosterone replacement. That's going to functionally shut down the testes. Supplement solution for that is going to be the PMG that you were just talking about, the protomorphogen, Orchic PMG, to replace or rebuild those the gonads from testosterone HRT. Fallopian tube tends to get weak. That'll cause the piriformis muscle to get weak and compromised. That's your trigger for sciatic pains, the pain right in the center of the tush. It's typically a yeast overgrowth affecting the fallopian tube. And then we've got prostate and uterus in the female case. That's the adductor groin muscles. That's that weak pelvic floor that you were just referring to, when they get squat and parts fall out.
Mm-hmm.
That's a weak adductor. So potentially we'd be looking at utrophin PMG in that case.
Mm.
So those are some of the deals, and the male, will have the adductor muscles or the piriformis compromised when the prostate is not functioning as it should. So again, remember a recurring theme is going to be the fact that too much insulin causes in the men causes testosterone to convert to estrogen, in the women causes estrogen to convert to testosterone. So in the woman, that's the back knee, the back acne, and greasy skin and hair on the chin or hair where they don't necessarily want it. That's too much, and then weight gain and junk in the trunk type weight. That's all signs of insulin problems and all the PMS and estrogen dominant symptoms. And then for the men, that's going to be the carbo belly and crying at chick flicks and man boobs over the long haul
Yeah.
if they're
Yeah.
not making proper changes and heeding the warnings, early warnings there. And so that's the beauty of these things. These are early warnings so that we can make changes before it becomes a life-threatening consequence. And so some of the symptoms, potential signs of imbalance is elevated cholesterol. Cholesterol
Whoa.
is right.
Let's slow down there, right? So many people, what are they going to do? They're going to freak out. They're
Right.
going to stop eating eggs. They're going to start taking statins. But
Right. So eating the things that would So cholesterol goes up. Cholesterol is the building block for the hormones. I
Right.
think we showed that in some of the other podcasts. But cholesterol, we eat the good fats, and we use those, the omega-3s, to then make hormones. So if hormones are deficient, then the body, the liver, starts kicking up its production of cholesterol to try to compensate for this hormone deficiency. So
Mm.
that's one of the more common causes I see for elevated cholesterol. The secondary, which we've talked about, is low thyroid. So those, which functionally is about the same mechanism. So very true, doable. Yeah. So that's a good area to look. If you have hormone symptoms and your cholesterol's up, you kind of know where to look, or what the consequence, or what the problem is. So carb cravings, estrogen is acidifying. We have a couple slides on that today. So estrogen acidifies the system, which makes it more yeast conducive. So the bad organisms biome, the bad yeast flourishes in the gut instead of the healthy, probiotics and so on, when estrogen is dominant. So we don't want that, obviously. And then, of course, we've got the mental emotional symptoms where dopamine, all
Mm.
the recreational drugs are aimed at elevating dopamine. Dopamine is the runner's high, just to kind of give you some ideas of the benefits of dopamine, but it goes high when it goes pathologically high. That's schizophrenia. When it
Yeah. Yeah.
goes, when it's pathologic, which correlates with high estrogen. Low estrogen, low dopamine is going to be more of the deep, dark depression, and ultimately Parkinson's. So no thank you on either of those
Right.
consequences.
Right.
And then so with with estrogen, excuse me, with insulin can blocks the conversion of the active thyroid hormone T4, excuse me, the inactive thyroid hormone T4 needs to convert to T3 to give us energy, and excuse me, drop an iodine to create energy, and so that process gets blocked
Could
by
you clarify
insulin.
that again? Did you say insulin is the thing that's blocking that, or estrogen? Okay.
Both, either
Okay.
one.
Okay.
Insulin and estrogen are both blockers of T4 to T3 conversion.
Great. Great.
So there's a great book about this
Hmm.
called the Headache Advantage. So, so there's potential signs of hormonal imbalance, laid out, with these bitemporal headaches in the book. Here's the kind of the fun slide depicting the consequence of feeding into. So when we eat the sugars, it causes estrogen dominance, or increased estrogen, which, as we just mentioned, blocks the T4 T3 conversion. So energy goes down. We have low energy, and then we have the cravings again, right? Simultaneously, we eat the carbohydrates, the sugars that feed yeast, overgrows. We get brain fog, so then we crave sugar again.
Brain frogs?
Brain
That's the
frog, yeah,
worst.
like the frog in my throat. We don't want brain frogs. So
Wow,
that
that's a
brain
great
fog, right?
picture.
So
I love
that
that.
brain fog causes more sugar cravings, and we
Right.
eat the sugar cravings. White blood cells literally go dormant for 4 hours, right? So the immune system shuts down. Keep not taming the sugar monster, you end up sick and in bed. So it's this whole ugly vicious cycle that we cave into the sugar cravings because of estrogen dominance. Then it perpetuates the sugar cravings, causes low energy brain fog, so that we crave more carbs and sugar. So break the cycle, eat protein when you get the carb sugar cravings, learn from your sugar cravings. From a blood type perspective, sugar cravings are going to happen when you eat and avoid. So
Mm.
for me, as a B blood type, if I ate chicken or I ate tomatoes, those cause insulin dumping for me, and I would have craved sugar. So
Mm.
I don't eat any of those things, those triggers. So I figured out what all those are, and I have no carb sugar cravings. People would say, what about, chocolate, or you need for this and that, and I have none of that. So that's kind of the way I live. So learn from those sugar cravings ultimately, and it's pretty easy to get them away and stay, on bring our A game and feel our best when we heed the warnings that they're speaking of the warnings, heed the warnings that they're that estrogen's out of balance.
Right.
So the headaches, we got the bitemporal headaches, is one of the physical signs of estrogen not being metabolized. We call this Scott Walker, I coined this term from Scott Walker, Dr. Scott Walker. He calls it potential advancing complications, because we want to understand the cost of inactivity. I call it the cost of inactivity,
Mm.
where if we keep not heeding the warning of that the elbow pain is telling us or the hip pain is telling us, then we end up getting weight gain, divorce. I mean, there's all the mental, emotional stuff that
Hmm.
women see the world completely differently when estrogen's high. It is an
And
unfortunate
so do
reality.
men. So do men when their
Go to
estrogen's
men.
high.
You're right. I
It's
talked
totally
about,
different.
excuse me, I talked about us men crying at chick flicks, and that sort of
Right?
stuff. The
Sure.
girls might think he's a sensitive man. Well, he's going man boobs on the couch with his donut in his hand.
Mhm.
So then the elbow pain, there's a tonification point again, right on the outside of the elbow there, lateral epicondylitis or tennis elbow. That is a insulin-induced hormone estrogen problem. Medial knee pain because the adrenals, if the adrenals are stealing from the hormones, then the inner knee, man, my friend, the medial knee gets tender. Low back pain, that L3 area right in the center of the low back is going to be a compromise. We have low libido because the hormones are out of balance, certainly hot flashes and infertility. So, one of the, good starting place if you're challenged in the fertility front, limit the sugars and the carbs.
Right. Right.
Speaking of uterine fibroids,
Yep.
are an insulin problem. My favorite supplement for uterine fibroids is Gymnema,
Mm.
stabilizing that insulin surge, and those uterine fibroids will go away within a week or two. Literally, I've seen it
Just with
countless,
Gymnema. Just with
just with,
Gymnema, you've seen uterine fibroids going away in a couple of weeks.
for
Wow.
sure.
Wow.
Yes, yes.
Amazing.
Grapefruit size. I mean, the full on palpable, you can see them popping out of their jeans, if you will,
Yeah.
and they'll go away.
Yes, just from stopping sugar, basically, is what you're saying. So
Stopping sugar.
how much Gymnema are you finding you're going to have to give people to be able to shut that down?
Not two.
Two.
I'm a low
Wow.
dose guy. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay. All right.
yeah. And the most common trigger for ovarian cysts is, again, it's that there's a lot in the literature on those these days. As a metabolic syndrome, which it's been known for. I mean, metformin was the medical solution for ovarian cysts.
Yeah.
But ultimately, corn is the most common food trigger I see to cause ovarian cysts. And that literally will happen in a couple of days of corn consumption. So that's a biggie. And
That's
then
a worth
cancer.
repeating. That's one that I catch all the time. Is I'll have women who I'm cutting down their sugar. There's a lot of research on keto diets and inositol and all of that for cysts. But if they keep eating
Right.
corn, is like you said, is major fuel on that fire, and I've seen that myself many times. That you have to cut the corn out, and that's tortillas and the nacho chips and all of those things that people don't think about being corn necessarily because it's not straight corn. But yeah, that's a big one.
Tiffany would be okay with me sharing her name and her story. This gal was an O blood type. O blood types are even more sensitive to corn. They're the most sensitive of the four basic blood types.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yes, yes,
Right.
yes, and she was completely corn free, and then started having an ovarian cyst, a couple ovarian cysts that had grown and burst. And she's like, what's going on? Turned out she was eating rice chips, they're potato chip, like a organic sort of chip that the third ingredient was corn.
Oh
And she
man.
thought she was doing being healthy with those. The third ingredient was corn. And within 3 days of eating those, she started forming ovarian cysts. That's
Wow.
corn, with corn as the third ingredient on there. So that story just kind of makes a good point of how potentially sensitive this can be.
Hmm.
It's quite the deal.
Well, and that's just a good reminder. I mean, oh wait, let's go back because the middle finger thing. Point out the middle finger.
Oh,
I think that's
oh, you want to bring the middle finger
of
up?
course I do. I mean, come on, you got to highlight it on there.
It's not overuse syndrome.
Everybody's favorite finger, everybody's favorite headache. Come on.
You're right. Good point. So the fingers, if you're talking, if they have arthritis in a finger specifically, look at the acupuncture meridian that goes through that finger. So the middle finger is the reproductive hormones. um, that meridian that goes through the middle finger. So when that finger is feels achy, that is a hormone concern as well. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
So much like
Okay.
the thumb is always, excuse me, what's with my voice today? The thumb is always a large intestine issue. So, anyway, the fingers are going to be the same thing. And the middle finger is a hormone concern.
Nice. Good to know. Okay.
So, an infographic on the signs of excess estrogen. We have water retention and edema, swelling, if you will, reduced sex drive, low blood sugar. We have cravings for sweet. We talked about, the feeding of estrogen, of yeast, and so on. We've got increased body fat, especially in the gluteal section. We've got swollen and painful breasts. So if a gal has painful breasts, two questions. The location is every kind of like headaches. The outer breast tends to be more of a gut biome concern. Zymex wafers are actually my favorite supplement of choice for that. When it's the whole breast tenderness, it hurts to hug, typical full breast tenderness, that is more of an estrogen dominance consideration.
Okay.
So certainly depression, again, estrogen is, dopamine is the brain's precursor to estrogen. So if dopamine's low, that's a deep, dark depression. So there's few forms of depression that are going to be related to this whole estrogen dominant consideration. Then we've got certainly the mood swings. Gentlemen, you ever seen that?
And women, come on now. We men have mood swings too. Let's be fair.
They have it. It's pretty bad when they recognize it, actually.
Yeah, right.
And then we've got the heavier, and then they do. I mean, they recognize it, for sure. Heavy and irregular menses, for sure, right? And then the uterine fibroids we just talked about. So a lot of the B vitamins, B6 in particular helps. B1 is the most common one that I see to help eradicate this. So I guess we might as well bring up the triple headache pattern that would go along with a thiamine deficiency. So thiamine helps make stomach acid. So when stomach acid is low, we're going to have a left-sided headache. Thiamine helps the thyroid make its thyroid hormone, so that's a suboccipital headache, and then thiamine helps break down estrogen, so that's the bitemporal headache. So if they have left-sided headache, bitemporal headache, and suboccipital headache, I'm going Cataplex B. I'm going thiamine as the solution. That should nail all that. They'll typically then you ask some of the other B deficient, thiamine deficient symptoms like mosquitoes like them, heart palpitations, maybe even so as profound as a mitral valve prolapse sort of diagnosed. These are all signs that thiamine is deficient in their life and in their diet.
Okay.
You had something you wanted to ask or add on that?
No, that's great. You mentioned the mosquito thing. I was just talking to my sister-in-law who's a mosquito magnet, and I was telling her, I said, let's load you up on B1 and see what happens. Right, that's the thing. So that's a lot. A lot of people
we do that, but they do, and it's summer, right? And people are traveling. So if you're going to an area, an environment where there's a lot of mosquitoes, you can take it. Start a couple of days before. Your side effect, you might have more energy.
Right. Might have a lot of things happening better in your life. Yeah, for sure.
So excess estrogen is due to estrogen if it's due to estrogen replacement, doctor may need to modify your dose. What do you think? So in this case, yes, you want to correct the reason. So in any of this, holistic practitioners, we want to correct the reason they were pursuing the estrogen replacement in the first place. You don't want to just take them off because then they feel like doo-doo again, and you're the villain. Whereas you correct the insulin, problems and resensitize receptors and so on, so that they'll feel good as they taper or go off with their hormones. Then you can be the hero. So ladies, that would be the protocol is treat the cause that your hormones were out of whack in the first place. And then you can revisit whether or not you need those hormones. So Estrogeneration is a great book on this. He calls it the IRS list, which it's on here. What is it? It stands for increased estrogen stimulation.
Okay. I
Let's
don't know where the R is. Oh, on that, but okay, we'll take it.
Yeah, it should be on the slide. I always forget myself too. It's a catchy term, but I always forget what the R stands for. Replace. Do you see the R on here?
Well, it says for pharmaceuticals, industrial chemicals, and then R for pharmaceuticals, right? For like RX, I think it's what it is. And S is in soy and food estrogens. So,
there we go.
Yeah.
Anyway, so these are some of the estrogenic sources, xenoestrogens, if you will. So things from outside that are going to cause estrogen dominance or like plastics that are going to be synthetic forms of estrogen that we get. And there's been a lot of press, over the last 20 or 30 years about, plastic bottles, leaving your water bottle in the car, in the heat and so on, setting the stage for breast cancers and so on. So yeah, definitely pharmaceuticals as sources. It's interesting. He talks a lot about, Anthony talks a lot about, fish that are infertile and frogs that are infertile, and research that they've done because of all the estrogen in the water. I
Right.
thought it was from girls throwing their pills away, but actually what's happening is all the 70% of the female population that's on birth control or estrogen of some sort, and then they pee.
Right.
And so it's coming out in the urine into the water sources, and then that's how frogs are then becoming infertile and fish are infertile and so on, and we get that in the water. So then certainly soy and food phytoestrogens. Soy is a plant source of estrogen. And there's all kinds of, soy is for the most part garbage in America anyway.
Right.
So we need to consider that. And then you talked about the animal products. Most of your anti-aging skin
Yep.
creams and
Have
things are
hormones in them. Sure.
right,
All of
some
them.
kind of estrogenic, right? Yeah, so be very careful in choosing those. EMFs, believe it or not, even Wi-Fi and that sort of stuff can be estrogenic. And then we've
Hmm.
got the chronic stress raises cortisol, which influences estrogen
Yep.
balance and metabolism. So the list is distinguished, isn't it? And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we can't get rid we can't get away from most of this. I mean, EMF radiation is I mean, it's on in the house. You go to the doctor's office and he's gonna have Wi-Fi going.
Yeah.
It's in your cars now. It's everywhere.
Yeah. Well, and that toxic burden and liver load, I mean, that we can't emphasize that one enough. This is why, I'm always encourage people to do 2 to 3 purifications a year just to clear that load off that liver and continue that
Right.
going. We've got tons of different groups of I think a lot of the practitioners listening are joining us in doing the November ones, the January ones, because it is so important for overall so many things. But yes, it even affects this aspect of it for sure.
Right. Absolutely. And so, yeah, and that's what we're going to lean into that a little bit more over the next few slides. And then the reabsorption, recirculation. So if the gut, I've got a slide on this as well, the gut dysbiosis, uh, uh, inappropriate bacteria, if you will, in the gut is going to compromise the metabolism of estrogen.
Hmm.
So limit your exposures ultimately, right? To lower your load, reclaim your health, do cleanses, do detoxes to get some of these out of the liver so that they're not constantly accumulating over the years,
Mhm.
right? So these are foods that are estrogen stimulating. And again, great book on the subject.
Yeah, nice.
And enjoy the cleaner skin and improve mood and lower your risk of chronic disease
Yeah.
for sure. Mhm.
Mhm.
So xenoestrogen sources, everyday exposures. We've got all the plastics
Yeah.
and garbage, and even styrofoam in the that your DoorDash meals come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we've got the chemicals that we're going to use to keep the bugs away and so on, and PUFAs. Uh, um,
Well, they're ubiquitous. Let's just say it, man. They're everywhere, like it says
they're-
down
yeah,
below. I mean, it's really hard to completely avoid being exposed to these xenoestrogens. It's almost impossible, right? So
right,
you
right,
really
right.
have to be paying attention to it.
We
Thermal
even had to
receipt,
get
that's a big one.
Yeah, yeah. We even had to get, the estrogen, non-estrogen thermal receipts for the credit card machine at the office. I didn't, so that my staff wasn't touching that all day.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge one.
Right. So doing our part. And then, as you mentioned, it's in the meats as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's everywhere.
So there's
So
a
we try
lot
to
of things
minimize.
that we can do to reduce our exposure, clearly, right? These are huge
Right.
options all here. Obviously, I don't want people to be overwhelmed and think, "Oh my God, I have to avoid every single one of these." But the more of these that you avoid, the easier it is going to be on your body to help to bring balance to this. But maybe you may not
Indeed.
know, right? That especially that thermal paper thing, that's been a big issue
Right.
for many years. A lot of people carrying
Right.
around a bunch of receipts in their pocket, and it's affecting their hormones, and they don't even know it. So take another
Yeah.
look at
Or
this
like,
list. Yeah, and see if you're
like I
heavy.
said, if you're working in retail and touching those receipts all day.
Right,
Another
right.
one. Um, this is one that I got exposed to through this book. So marijuana and lavender, a couple of
Yeah.
sources, right? So marijuana, I mean, it's a fun example, right? That cannabis is estrogenic. So that kind of had me reminded of the munchies that people get, right?
Oh yeah, 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 sure.
Right. So
Okay.
is it the estrogenic effect of marijuana that causes the munchies that people get after consumption?
Huh.
You know,
Maybe.
of doing their pot brownies or
Yeah, yeah.
smoking or whatever they're doing. And then lavender. I used to have lavender, you know, sprigs next to my bed at night to help sleep,
Hmm.
and not realizing that
Not
can be
necessarily
estrogenic.
ideal. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Not
All
to say that
right.
it's bad, but it's yeah,
Yeah.
too much every day, all the time can be too much. Right. Yeah.
Right. So if we don't heed the warnings, we don't make choices, start learning from, oops, I'm touching, printer paper all the time, and or using these anti-aging creams. It's a kind of a silent killer, if you will, and it is cumulative because the longer we're exposed, the more risk and the more stress we put on the liver, so that it becomes less and less able to detoxify these toxins,
Mm.
and then we end up in trouble. So it is preventable. We want to limit our exposure so that we don't end up with these cancers. Most, as you mentioned, I think earlier, most cancers are estrogen receptor dominant and have an estrogen component to them. So just makes it kind of baffling that they're removing black box warnings, right?
Right.
When there's this known compromise from it, and knowing that cancer has outpaced, cardiovascular disease now, and it's obnoxiously prevalent.
Right.
Uh,
And estrogen
it's a
dominance can
frustration.
contribute to both breast cancer and heart disease and stroke
Right.
and liver disease. And, so yes, there the risks are, I think, being underplayed, unfortunately. And again, I don't want to take away hormone replacement therapy from anybody, but I want them to know that the risks are real, and there are better options, definitely better options
Mhm.
for sure.
Mhm. So you just summarize this bottom chart. I mean, so basically we're talking methylation and cytochrome P450 phase one, and then a few of the phase two pathways. When they don't work, it can either turn to cancer or it can turn to plugging of the arteries. And then same mechanism for cognitive decline. So we don't want any of these. So learn from what your body's trying to tell. Get the early warning signs, even if it's just a pain in the glute medius or pain in the elbow. That's your early warning sign that you
Right.
could be heading for some of these
Or pain in your middle finger.
potential pain in your middle finger. There you go. Could be. And so it's silent, it's cumulative, it's preventative. Let's make better choices. Long-term consequences. Again, we want to recognize that, hey, weight gain and obesity, yeah, that's a bummer, but breast cancer and reproductive issues and stroke are kind of grave consequences
Right.
if we don't take advantage of what the body's trying to tell us.
Right.
The advantage of pain is that it's an early warning sign that something we're doing isn't working so well. So I really leaned into this, didn't I?
Yep.
We don't want to die. You don't want you don't want
Let's get to what we can do about it,
to,
right? Okay, we're gonna avoid those things. Oh,
right.
let's hear
And
this
so
story though. Let's hear this one.
here we go. So Linda had been with me for many years, and lives, she has to drive an hour or two to get there. So that's the intermittent part. And we treated her for many wellness and anti-aging desires. And she felt like she needed her hormone replacement therapy, though. She
Yeah.
she said her mood is better, her sex is better, her skin is better.
Hmm.
All the typical rant that we hear when gals are doing this. And I kept telling her it's inhibiting methylation. You're playing with fire.
Right.
We had that conversation for about 5 years. Uh, you know, Now the praise report, the long-term answer to that is we've now fortunately been successful in helping her through her stage 2 breast cancer, but unfortunately I was prophetic in the
Right.
sense of
Yeah.
telling her, this is the long-term risk. We tried, having her on B6 and, doing liver supplements and stuff during that time. But unfortunately she didn't end up getting ahead of it and ended up with breast cancer.
Right.
She's still alive, and lived to tell about it. And she still asks me about her HRT. It's baffling.
Oh man.
What are
She
we
still
doing?
wants to do it, huh?
Still
Yeah.
wants to consider it.
Wow. Jeez.
It shocks me. So some of the supplements we can use to help, you have some ideas in here as well that I did not include in this chart. So we've got ovotrophin is the protomorphogen to heal and rebuild the ovary, if you will. Ovex feeds it. Simplex F is general female support, has all the, the pituitary and orchic and eutrophin and adrenal all in there. And then the wild yam is estrogen metabolizer. People often talk about yam as a phytoprogesterone. The wild yam as an herb is actually an estrogen metabolizer, which helps especially when hormones are starting to transition, seems to help resensitize receptors. Very nice product. That's the most common supplement I would lean into, or first one I would test when a woman's hormones are starting to shift and menstruation is starting to taper. All those perimenopausal symptoms. We talked about lateral epicondylitis, pain on the outside of the elbow, tennis elbow. That is a hormone issue. Wild yam or potentially chaste tree in the younger years would be the potential supplement solutions for that. Did you want to talk about Femco?
Well, chaste tree, I just want to say, is one of those that can be very low dose for sure and make a profound impact. I just had a lady a couple weeks come in, and she's had some lifetime issues that she's been struggling with and not getting answers anywhere. And it was just chaste tree alone that just really brought her to a whole new world, right, of life. So I was really, that's a very powerful one. But yeah, the one that I would encourage you to start muscle testing for in these situations as well, and all of you listening, is Femco. Femco does test often very well for this. That shatavari, and there's so much research on that specific. It's a type of asparagus, actually, shatavari or shatavari, depending on how people are saying it. But that's definitely a profound game changer for many women as well, Femco. But all of these,
nice.
I just had a lady tell me a story, one of my mentees, about a lady who had no sex drive for many, many years. Very, very unhappy in that category. She put her on 6 tribulus a day, and now she's the happiest she's ever been, just from the tribulus for her.
Nice.
So yeah, these are some really good suggestions you have up there. Yeah.
So yeah, and tribulus is the gold standard for fertility. So put the husband and wife on it and make babies. It's a good way to grow your practice.
Yes.
Make them more healthy humans.
Yep.
And then pituitrophin, master control, is great for growth hormone and so many others. So, as you mentioned, chaste tree for PMS, we got the breast tenderness. It helps infertility potentially, normal progesterone levels with chaste tree, and encourages healthy menstruation. Definitely, this is the bomb for getting that cycle stabilized. And then we've got the normal reproductive function.
What about bi-temporal headache?
Feelings of tension.
Wouldn't you bring this in?
Yes, bi-temporal headaches.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. And then tribulus, as you mentioned. Athletic performance, but as you mentioned, libido is a biggie
men and women
as well.
Men and women, yeah.
Men and women, yes, indeed, and yes, women need libido too. It's a whole process. So we talked about ovotrophin, the PMG. If they've had ovarian cysts, ovotrophin is the hot ticket there. Again, to de-stress that pathway, the connection between the ovaries and the thyroid and the pituitary and so on. So the ovotrophin will help very, very nicely there, especially when they have that glute medius pain. Contains a unique profile of nucleotides, peptides. There's that peptide word from the porcine ovary, right? So see, we're given peptides.
Way before it was cool, man. Way before it was cool.
Yeah. That's right. This is the 30s, right? Before peptides were way before it was cool. So healthy female balance with that chaste tree, wonderful herb. Definitely give that a consideration for that lateral epicondylitis as well. Then we've got the wild yams, menopause support. There's your shatavari.
Oh, there is shatavari in there as well. Okay, good. Yep, I don't reach for that one as much, but we'll have to take a look at what else is in Femco as well.
Right. And then St. John's wort, right, for the mood aspect and viral and nerve symptoms that could go along with it. Sage, black cohosh, also pretty legendary there. Corian ginseng to help handle the stress of change and that season of life. So wild yam, great option there. Again, Orchic PMG was back in 1952, before anybody was talking about peptides. That's a beautiful thing. That's in testes. We're not concerned with the only reproduction, but also the addition of exert somatic growth, fat distribution, and psychic development. So beautiful thing here that psychic development. I mean, I don't know how much I've been really enjoying what we learned from what was her name that talked about HA? Remember Cutlerman?
Oh yeah.
The
Yep.
excuse me, the mental aspect of how the gonads affect brain
Oh
function
yes.
and motivation and all that. Now I'm kind of starting to really enjoy how testosterone can affect the brain in a psychic perspective,
Mhm.
mental emotional perspective and the drive. It's pretty profound and part of the rebuilding process for TBIs or post concussion symptoms and so on. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So
So
in the Femco, it's also white peony and Chisandra mixed with Shatavari. That's the difference there. So it's a slightly different thing. And I think it's maybe a slightly better price point as well. So if you're looking for options that are a little more economical,
what's a better price point?
I
Femco
think
or the Wild Yam?
Femco over Wild Yam. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Tonkat Alley is another one kind of pairs well or kind of somewhat similar symptoms or symptom pattern that it's good against, if you will, as tribulus. And
Hmm.
I tend to use this more for the kind of mental emotional aspect of testosterone. Yeah, very, very good product. I use both of them for my athletic performance concerns. Uh, Again, always start, just want to belabor this point, always start by treating blood sugar. Maria was a 40-something female with probable grapefruit-sized uterine fibroids. Her fibroid was undetected within 2 months. Most of the time, it's 2 weeks of
Wow.
gymnema as well as normalized sleep patterns.
Wow.
So that was Maria. There was
That's a
another
pearl
gal
worth
that,
listening to this episode for me.
there you
I'm gonna
go.
say right there.
Perfect. Have another gal that, I mean, I could tell how much sugar she was eating by the bulge on the right side of her lower abdomen, where how
Wow.
the fibroid would grow, and she'd be back on her candies and sugars. She'd have literally a grapefruit popping out there, and then she'd have her six pack, flat
Wow.
tummy when she was behaving herself, taking her gymnema. It was
Wow.
a direct, I mean, and again, it's within weeks that will change. Well, demonstrated on ultrasound. Thought
Mm.
I'd throw a little midterm exam in for you. What's the most enhance your learning? What's the most common cause of bitemporal headaches? Too much temporal activity, husband's libido, poorly metabolized estrogen, or pink ovaries on the head.
Okay. Final answer. I think we'll go with C. Poorly metabolized estrogen,
See,
everybody.
there we go. You're learning. Similar deal. Most common cause of tennis elbow, too much tennis, too much testosterone, donuts, or sugar-induced estrogen imbalance. So, I
Well,
mean, it's kind of all of the above, really. But
yeah. Yes.
sugar-induced estrogen dominance, right? Which could
Mhm.
be from donuts. Yeah, and then that leads to too much testosterone. So fun little quiz for you there. So P450, we need to kind of talk about this. If you're a muscle tester, that's where the elbow crease on the left side of the body, where the elbow crease will reach the side of I'm sorry, on the right side, on the right side where the elbow crease reaches to the head of the liver, if you will, there. That's spleen 21 point.
Yep.
That that point on when it's just on the right side active is an indication that cytochrome P450 is either overactive or underactive. We can muscle test that, palm up, palm down. Creating weakness is going to mean that it's overactive. That means we're overdriving that P450 enzymes, which and then the phase two enzymes aren't keeping up. That is hallmark disaster for malignant cancers. Whereas when it's pumped up, it's under functioning P450, that's more chemical sensitivities and that sort of stuff. That's the person that's going to sneeze every time they walk by, Bed Bath and Beyond and so on, or
Mhm.
their spouse puts on the perfumes and things. And I get that when I'm overtrained, then I'll
Mm.
start sneezing around, people that wear their strongest perfume to church and so on.
Right. So what you're saying, say if it's overactive, what are your first thoughts to help them bring a balance if it's overactive?
Thank you. So typically it's viruses. It's
Okay.
yeah, viruses that overdrive P450 and open this again, set the stage for malignant cancers. It's a deficiency of antioxidants and free radical scavengers that
Okay.
leave the pathway under functioning.
Okay.
So
So
yeah,
maybe some
so
red food and some viral protocols for that. And what if it's under functioning?
if it's under functioning, then we do the red foods. We
The
do
red food. Right. Okay.
yeah.
Got
And
it.
the Vitanox is one of my faves for that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Vitanox works really,
That's
really,
right.
really
Love
well.
vitamin. I keep forgetting about
Yeah.
that one. Okay.
So yeah, it's the antiviral protocols when it's too high.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, so Viranon actually works really well there. Viranon will help support both sulfation and the phase one, the P450 enzymes. So that's a beautiful thing. And of course, what am I? Imiplex and things like that.
Yep. Yep. Lots of options for that for sure.
Many, many. So when phase one has run amok, it's a bad news. It's a big problem. Alcohol can cause it. Alcohol causes leaky gut. It upregulates P450. Don't do barbiturates.
Right.
And carbon tetrachloride and charcoal. Somebody was asking me the other day about
Yeah.
barbecuing, overcooking your barbecuing your meats, and digoxin. The pesticides and garbage, exhaust fumes, high protein diets. Again, we want high protein diets, but properly.
Right. You got to digest it for sure. Okay.
And then oranges and grapefruit and so on.
Really?
Right? And
Wow.
I mean, so grapefruit, a lot of medications, right, have warnings,
That's
blood
right.
thinners and so on say don't use grapefruit. Oranges fit into that category as well.
Okay.
Orthophosphorus, pesticides, paint fumes, B2, riboflavin there's part of our solution, right? If it's under functioning, we want to take
Right.
catalytic
Right.
B2. And then sassafras, that's such a fun word.
I'm glad you put that on there.
All right. So phase one, we don't want it running amok. It does oxidation reduction, hydrolysis, hydration. There's our big words, dehalogenation. So those are the phase two pathways that so this oxidizes. So basically we're creating free radical damage, oxidizing them to then go into the phase two enzyme. So if the phase two isn't able to keep up, then we end up with all these free radical intermediates, and that's where the cancer can brew.
Right.
So again, we're talking about this. So you've got physical signs now. You understand some of the physical signs of estrogen dominance, so you can recognize, oops, I had tennis. It's not just tennis elbow. That's your early warning sign that you could be heading for some of these uglier problems. And that's our whole MO, is to inspire and educate you, the listener and the practitioner, to head some of these problems off, because they are running amok in our society these days.
Right.
So it's DNA, both RNA and DNA repair problems.
Yeah.
And oops, we should talk about the.
Well, these slides could be a whole different talk for us. So let's sum this up for everybody, because we're almost an hour in that we have to talk about liver, and we got to support the liver. You got to make sure the liver is clear. Yep. These things.
And so oral contraceptives and SSRIs, your antidepressants can drive this and run it crazy. Caffeine, so don't smoke. Shocking news there. When methylation and sulfation aren't working well, you'll see the red dots on the skin. That's a sign that homocysteine is not metabolizing properly, opens the door for cardiovascular problems.
Right. Now, Dr. Chi would say that's an estrogen dominant situation, but it's that you're not breaking down the estrogen. Right.
We're saying the same thing. Yes.
Exactly.
So methylation, just again, because we talk about this in a lot of our other podcasts. We don't want cancers, right? We don't want cardiovascular problems. They've done studies where they've fed the rats that were known, diabetic and obese. They fed them nutrients to facilitate the methylation pathway, and they created healthy, lean,
babies,
functional rats. Yeah. So this is relevant because we want to create healthy babies. We want to break the cycle. Most of society are these agouti type rats that are fat, obese, and have high risks because of the poor diet and the methylation compromise. If you're talking about getting pregnant, if you're going to have kids, you want to make sure methylation works so that your kids can be the generation, not Pottinger's cats,
right.
They can grow and reverse the cycle. we can affect genetics ultimately. And saw some stuff over the weekend talking about gut biome and its effect, positive epigenetic effects on the DNA and methylation, which I think is coming up. Let's try to get to that. We're running long, and here we am pulling in a whole nother one. So here's the gut microbiome. This came about as I was talking to Meta on my bike ride yesterday.
Uh-huh.
Just to kind of give you a glimpse into how multitasking and immersed in all this I am. Listening to a cancer book, and it got me looking at the gut biome. And so as I talked about estrogen being acidifying, that's probably the easiest summary of what this whole chart lays out. But it creates an environment where the bad bacteria can flourish. Beta-glucuronidation. Glucuronidation is a liver pathway that the thyroid hormones and estrogen break down in. When it doesn't work, then we end up with problems. So there's a lot here. Factors that influence your gut biome, fiber, stuff we're going to talk about as we continue the discussion on peptides. That will continue on. Beta-glucuronidation. Again, we want to help the liver break these estrogens down, have a good, healthy gut biome. Again, the recurring theme that comes up in most of our podcasts: healthy gut biome, healthy liver, and live a more flourishing, productive life. Glucuronidation, again, there's big name conditions that go along with that. There we go.
Which we can get into more and more. I just don't want us to cover everything in one episode.
Yeah. I know. That's me. Overdo it. So in the Headache Advantage, I've got these flow charts to try to figure out what you need. So if you got vivid dreams, night terrors, these are signs potentially of dopamine, chase tree, or triethylamine, which would mean cataplex B. And then if we have blood sugar related symptoms, the pain on the elbow and so on, you want to look at gymnema, maybe berberine, chromium complex, these types of things to stabilize blood sugar. Tension in the back of the neck, that's a sign of yeast overgrowth when it's one-sided neck pain. Waking between 1 and 3, we have hamstrings or liver related muscle. We talked about the red dots. These are liver symptoms. So do your B12.
Yeah, okay.
Right. This was brilliant. B12 is a primary methyl donor to drive this whole methylation pathway. Then we've got the low energy in the morning. So these are adrenal symptoms. Adrenals are stealing from the hormones. So then we look at things like eleuthero to stabilize cortisol rhythms, pantothenic acid to break down acetylcholine, de-stress people, and all the great adrenal glandulars that we have. So lots to talk about, as you could tell.
Yeah.
Bitemporal headaches, consider estrogen sources, consider excess, look at your sugar consumption, which you probably have cravings. That's a sign of estrogen dominance. Are you using hormones? Are you eating corn? Is stress compromising you? Is liver, you have brown spots? That's a sign of liver, poor methylation. Then we've got supplements like B12. Cataplex B12 would be the standard process version of that. And we've got chase tree, wild yam, B6 niacinamide, Cataplex B, milk thistle. So many great options. I'm trying to give you some ways, some modalities to narrow it down to what of these solutions is going to be the most effective for you based on your symptom patterns and so on. Final exam, which liver pathways are responsible? I kind of flew through all that, but anyway, eat fiber, supplement appropriately. Estrogen is poorly metabolized, marriages struggle. There's a pain in the butt, right? The glute medius, cancers grow, and yes, again, all of the above. Right. So there we go. Thanks for hanging in with us as we rant and roll and try to give you some solutions, some easy ways to.
Well, and I think the final takeaway is we should be paying attention to the fact that estrogen metabolism is more the issue than just taking hormone replacement therapy. And there's so many variables that are contributing to the estrogen dominance that we can control. And if we address those, it's going to help our lives in many, many ways. We're going to reduce many stresses from our bodies.
Yeah, so many. And again, it's the prevention. We don't want the grave consequences that this is an early warning sign for. Take advantage of what they're telling you.
Absolutely. Yeah, so keep that in mind. Lots to go back through here. If you have questions, leave them in the comments below. I know we kind of jumped into phase 1, phase 2 liver and glucuronidation and a lot of things that get really complicated. If you want a whole episode about one of those, I'm sure we can get deeper into those as well, specifically. But we're here to have a conversation with you. We're here to make sure that we're all in this together, in finding the right solutions and keeping away from, as Dr. V says, the worst case scenario that we've outlined in many slides in this one today that are the problem. Okay, any last thoughts, Dr. V, before we let them get back to their lives?
Learn from what the body's telling you to prevent the big uglies.
Right, learn from
Be inspired.
Be inspired. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.